Samuel Thompson awoke to the soft, golden light filtering through the curtains of his modest bedroom. Sunbeams danced on the walls, illuminating the framed photographs of family members and old friends that adorned the space. Today was a day of significance, his 50th birthday. Samuel lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, a mix of anticipation and trepidation swirling in his mind. He had always preferred simplicity over extravagance, but there was a quiet hope nestled in his heart that perhaps this year his family would remember. With a resigned sigh, he swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood up. The cool wooden floor sent a shiver through him, and he padded into the small kitchen. The faint scent of coffee lingered from the previous day, a reminder of his solitary routine. He put on a pot of fresh coffee, the rich aroma filling the air, and began preparing breakfast. Samuel cracked a couple of eggs into a pan, the sizzle reassuring in its familiarity. As he whisked them together, he allowed himself to dream of the day ahead, a simple gathering, perhaps a few phone calls, a cake that he had picked up earlier in the week from the local bakery. Maybe Lily will surprise me, he muttered to himself, stirring the eggs with a hint of optimism. His sister Lily had always been the more vibrant of the two, lost in her whirlwind of life, but he hoped today would be different. As he plated his breakfast, he glanced at the clock on the wall. It was still early, and he had plenty of time to prepare for whatever small celebration he envisioned. After breakfast, he washed the dishes, humming a tune that had once been popular on the radio. The sound of water splashing and the clinking of plates filled the silence of his home. Samuel's thoughts wandered to Mark, his childhood friend. They had shared countless memories, and Samuel knew that Mark had been going through a rough patch lately. He silently hoped Mark would remember to check in. Everyone gets busy, he reassured himself, trying to shake off the nagging feeling of loneliness creeping in. As the morning wore on, Samuel found himself pacing the living room, glancing at his phone every few minutes. He expected at least a message from Lily or a call from Mark. Maybe a text from an old friend, someone who'd remember to wish him well. But as the hours melted away and the sun climbed higher in the sky, the silence of his home became increasingly deafening. Samuel sank onto the worn-out couch, his heart heavy with disappointment. Maybe they're just preoccupied, he whispered, trying to convince himself that the day was still young. Yet, deep down, he felt a gnawing sense of isolation. He picked up the phone, scrolling through his contacts, hovering over Lily's name, contemplating whether to send a message. But he hesitated, unsure if he wanted to appear needy or desperate. Around noon, he decided to take a walk around the neighborhood, hoping to clear his mind. The streets were quiet, the sun casting long shadows as he strolled past houses that were filled with laughter and celebration. Children played in yards, their giggles ringing in the air, a sharp contrast to the solitude he felt. He forced a smile at a couple of neighbors, exchanging pleasantries as they tended to their gardens, their conversations light and cheerful. Samuel nodded along, but inside, he was drowning in a sea of unacknowledged feelings. "Happy birthday, Sam," called out Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly woman from across the street, as she watered her roses. "What are you doing for your big day?" "Just taking a stroll, Mrs. Jenkins," he replied, managing a smile. "Nothing too exciting." "Make sure you do something special. 50 is a big one," she shouted, her voice fading as he continued on his way. Samuel felt a bittersweet twinge at her words. The day was supposed to be special, but it was quickly becoming just another ordinary day. He returned home in the early afternoon, his heart feeling heavier with each passing moment. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched cake he had bought earlier, its sugary frosting glistening under the kitchen light. Hours passed, and the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm glow through the windows. Samuel's phone buzzed, and his heart raced for a moment. He snatched it up, only to find a notification from a social media app. Someone had liked an old photo of him. A fleeting distraction that did little to lift his spirits. No calls, no messages. Just silence. As evening approached, Samuel found himself in a dimly lit diner, a familiar haunt where he often came to escape his thoughts. The bell above the door jingled as he entered, and the comforting scent of fried food enveloped him. He slid into a booth in the corner, preferring the solitude it offered. A waitress, with a knowing smile and bright red lipstick, approached him. "Evening, Samuel. What'll it be?" she asked, her notepad at the ready. "Just coffee for now, please," he replied, feeling the weight of his melancholy. "Come on, it's your birthday. You should treat yourself," she insisted, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "How about a piece of cake?" He hesitated, glancing at the dessert display, which featured an array of colorful cakes and pastries. Maybe just a slice of something small, he finally conceded, feeling a hint of guilt at the thought of indulging when he was alone. She smiled brightly, jotting it down. One slice of chocolate cake coming right up. You deserve a little sweetness today. As he waited, he looked around the diner, observing the couples and families enjoying their meals, the laughter and chatter creating a symphony of life that felt distant from his own. His gaze fell to the window, where the last rays of sunlight faded into a dusky twilight. He thought of his family, Lily, who seemed to have forgotten him, and Mark, who had always been there but now felt like a ghost from the past, shadowed by unspoken words and unaddressed issues. Here you go, the waitress said, placing a slice of cake in front of him, the rich chocolate glistening invitingly. Happy birthday again. I hope you make a wish. Samuel smiled faintly, lifting his fork to take a bite. The taste was heavenly, but it did little to fill the void within him. Thank you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. As he savored the cake, he couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that enveloped him. He felt invisible, a ghost in his own life, lost among the memories of birthdays past where laughter and love had filled the air. Today, he was just a man sitting alone in a diner, contemplating the weight of his solitude. Are you okay? The waitress asked, concern etching her features as she wiped down a nearby table. Just reflecting, he replied, forcing another smile. It's a big day for me, but it seems I'm celebrating in my own way. Sometimes the quiet moments can be the most profound, she offered, her voice soothing. But don't forget, you're not alone. You've got people who care, whether they show it or not. He nodded, appreciating her kindness. Thank you. I guess I'm just waiting for them to remember. As the evening deepened, Samuel finished his cake, leaving behind the plate with only a few crumbs. He paid the bill and stepped outside into the cool night air, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude for the small moments and sadness for the larger ones. With each step, he pondered the path his life had taken, the relationships that had faltered, and the connections that had frayed over time. Little did he know that the greatest gift he had left behind in his will would soon unravel the very fabric of his life, exposing truths that had long remained buried. Samuel Thompson turned the key in the lock, the familiar click echoing in the stillness of his home. The evening sun bathed the living room in a warm glow, but the warmth did little to alleviate the chill he felt inside. He stepped inside, letting the door close softly behind him, as if hoping to shut out the disappointment of the day. A faint breeze ruffled the curtains, and he caught a faint scent of the lilacs blooming in the garden outside, a reminder of better days, of laughter shared and moments cherished. As he moved further into the house, a glint of white caught his eye on the kitchen table. A plain envelope rested there, its edges crumpled as if it had been handled too many times. Samuel's heart sank as he recognized the seal, his attorney's. He hesitated for a moment, his mind racing with apprehension. What could this be about? He picked up the envelope, his fingers trembling slightly as he tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, neatly folded. Unfolding it, he began to read, Dear Samuel, I hope this letter finds you well. I am writing to inform you that your will has been updated to reflect some important changes. As per your wishes, there is a special gift intended for your family that I believe will have a significant impact on their lives. Please consider this gift carefully, as it may change the dynamics of your relationships moving forward. I urge you to reach out to your sister and your friend to discuss these matters at your earliest convenience. Best regards, Jonathan Reed. Samuel's brow furrowed in confusion. A special gift? What could that possibly mean? He had spent years contemplating his legacy and the impact of his life on those he cared about. He had hoped in some way to mend the frayed ties with Lily and Mark, but he had never imagined he would leave them a gift. The thought was both intriguing and unsettling. He glanced out the window, watching the last rays of sunlight fade into twilight. The world around him felt distant and muted, much like his own sense of belonging. He felt the weight of solitude pressing down on him, pushing him to take action. He had to talk to Lily and Mark. This could be the opportunity he had been waiting for, a chance to bridge the gaps that had widened over the years. With a newfound sense of purpose, Samuel picked up his phone. He hesitated for a moment, his fingers hovering over the screen. Should he really reach out? What if they didn't care? But deep down, he knew he had to try. He typed a message to both of them. Hey, can we meet tomorrow? I have something important to discuss. After hitting send, he felt a mix of anticipation and dread. Would they respond? Would they even show up? The lingering silence of his home only heightened his uncertainty. He busied himself with mundane chores, washing the dishes and straightening the living room, but his mind kept drifting back to the letter and what it might mean. The next evening came quickly. Samuel paced back and forth in the living room, glancing at the clock every few minutes. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken tension. He had prepared coffee and laid out a simple spread of cookies, but his stomach twisted with anxiety. Finally, the doorbell rang. Samuel's heart raced as he opened the door to find Lily standing there, her expression a mix of curiosity and wariness. She had always been the more vibrant of the two, but tonight, there was a shadow behind her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. "Hey Samuel," she said softly, stepping inside. "What's going on?" "Thanks for coming," he replied, forcing a smile. "I needed to talk to you and Mark about something important." Before he could say more, a knock echoed through the hallway. Samuel opened the door again, this time revealing Mark, who looked equally apprehensive. "Hey man," Mark greeted, his voice low. "What's this about?" "Let's sit down," Samuel suggested, motioning toward the living room where he had arranged the cookies on the table. They settled into their seats, the air thick with unexpressed feelings. "So, what's on your mind?" Lily asked, her fingers fiddling with the edge of her sleeve. Samuel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their shared history pressing down on him. "I received a letter from my attorney," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "It mentioned a special gift in my will for both of you." Lily's brows knitted together in confusion. "A gift? What kind of gift?" Samuel bit his lip, trying to gauge their reactions. "I'm not entirely sure what it means yet, but I wanted to discuss it with you both. I thought maybe it could help us reconnect." Mark leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Reconnecting? Is that what this is about?" "Yes," Samuel replied, his heart racing. "I know things have been strained between us. I thought that maybe this could be a fresh start." The silence that followed was deafening. Lily exchanged a glance with Mark, and Samuel could see the uncertainty etched on their faces. "Samuel, look," Lily began hesitantly. "I've been busy. Life's been overwhelming. I haven't been there for you, and I'm sorry, but I don't know if a gift can change that." Mark shifted in his seat, his eyes downcast. "Yeah, things have been tough for all of us, but I don't think a material gift is what we need to fix our issues." Samuel felt a pang of disappointment. "It's not just about the gift. It's about what it represents. I want us to be a family again." Mark looked up, his expression softening slightly. "I get that, Sam. But sometimes I feel like we're just going through the motions. We need to talk about what's really going on between us." Lily nodded, biting her lip. "I think we all have things we need to say. I've been struggling with, a lot. I don't want to burden you with my problems, but it's hard to ignore." Samuel felt the tension in the room shift slightly. "I'm here for you both. We can face this together. Just, let's be honest with each other." As they sat in that uncomfortable silence, Samuel realized how far apart they had drifted. Each of them carried their own burdens, and he felt a mix of sadness and determination. They needed to confront their pasts, but first, he needed to understand the implications of the letter he had received. He decided to press forward. "I think we should talk about what the gift might entail. It could be a way to help each other." "Help each other how?" Mark asked, his voice cautious. "I don't know yet," Samuel admitted, feeling vulnerable. "But I want to explore this together." Lily reached for a cookie, breaking the tension with a nervous laugh. "Well, if it's a gift, it can't be all bad, right?" Mark smirked slightly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just hope it's not a timeshare in Florida or something." Samuel chuckled, but internally, he felt the weight of the conversation pressing down on him. They were all dancing around the truth, and deep down, he knew they needed to confront their realities. But for now, he hoped that the promise of the special gift would bring them closer instead of tearing them further apart. As their conversation meandered through trivial matters, Samuel felt an urgency building within him. He wanted to share the full weight of the letter, to reveal its potential to reshape their lives, but the moment never felt right. He could sense the distance still lingering between them, like an invisible barrier that he desperately wanted to break. The evening wore on, and although they laughed and reminisced about old times, a part of Samuel felt hollow. He knew that the real discussion lay ahead, waiting to be unearthed. In that stillness, he realized that while the letter spoke of a gift, the real gift would be their willingness to confront the past and the truths that lay hidden beneath the surface. The air in Samuel Thompson's living room felt thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. As they sat in a semicircle around the coffee table, Samuel's heart raced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. He glanced at Lily, who was seated across from him, her hands nervously twisting the fabric of her jeans. It was as if the gravity of the moment had pressed down on them, the weight of their shared history looming over their heads. Samuel, I need to be honest with you, Lily began, her voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, swallowing hard, as if the truth she was about to reveal was a heavy stone lodged in her throat. I've been struggling with my finances. I thought I could handle it on my own, but it's just gotten worse. I'm in debt, and I feel so ashamed for not being around more. Samuel felt a pang of concern for his sister. He had always viewed her as strong and independent, someone who could weather any storm. Lily, he said gently, leaning forward, you don't have to handle everything by yourself. I'm here for you. We're family. Tears glistened in Lily's eyes, and she wiped them away with the back of her hand. I know that, but I've always felt like a burden. I didn't want to add to your troubles, especially when you, she paused, the air thickening with a mention of his recent birthday and the loneliness he had felt. Especially with everything you've been going through. The silence that followed was palpable, stretching between them like an invisible barrier. Samuel could feel the hurt of her words, the implication that he had been isolated in his own grief. We've both been lost in our own worlds, Lily, he said quietly, but that doesn't mean we can't lean on each other. Mark, who had been sitting silently beside Lily, shifted in his seat and cleared his throat. I can relate to that, he chimed in, his gaze focused on the floor. I've been avoiding you, Samuel. I thought I could just deal with my insecurities about our friendship on my own. But instead, I've just been making things worse. Samuel looked at Mark, a mixture of surprise and concern washing over him. Mark, I didn't know you were struggling. Why didn't you reach out? We've been friends for so long. Mark's eyes darted up to meet Samuel's, and for a moment, Samuel saw the turmoil reflected in his friend's gaze. I guess I didn't want you to see how weak I felt. It's embarrassing, you know? I didn't want to burden you with my problems when you've got your own, he replied, his voice cracking slightly. But that's the thing, isn't it? Samuel said, the realization dawning on him. We've all been too afraid to show our vulnerabilities. Instead of leaning on each other, we've just kept our distance. The atmosphere in the room began to shift as the tension that had hung in the air started to dissipate. Samuel felt a surge of determination. We can change that, he urged. I want us to be honest with one another. If we're going to move forward, we need to confront our fears and our secrets together. Just as he finished speaking, a sudden buzz pierced the air. Samuel's phone vibrated on the table, jolting everyone from their moment of vulnerability. He glanced down at the screen and frowned. An unknown number flashed across it, and a sense of unease washed over him. Who is it? Lily asked, her curiosity piqued. I don't know, Samuel replied, his brow furrowing. It's just an unknown number. He felt an instinctual urge to ignore it, to let it go to voicemail, but something compelled him to pick it up. Maybe I should just see who it is. Samuel, maybe it's not the best time, Mark cautioned, his voice tinged with concern. We're in the middle of something important. Samuel hesitated, the buzzing phone feeling like an intruder in their fragile moment. I'll just check it quickly, he said, dismissing his friend's advice. He swiped to unlock the screen and opened the message. Samuel, we need to talk. There's something you don't know about Lily and Mark, the text read, sending a chill down his spine. A wave of dread washed over him. He looked up at Lily and Mark, who were both watching him with expressions of confusion. What's wrong? Lily asked, her tone shifting to one of concern. It's just a message. It's from someone I don't recognize, he said, trying to downplay the tension that had suddenly surged. They said they need to talk to me about something I don't know. Mark leaned in closer, curiosity etched on his face. Who is it? Do they say what it's about? Samuel shook his head, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. No, just that it's important. But I think we should focus on what we were talking about. Lily looked anxious, her fingers fidgeting nervously. Samuel, if it's something important, maybe you should respond. What if it's related to us? Samuel felt a knot form in his stomach. I don't know. I don't want to distract us from this. Mark's expression shifted to one of annoyance. But what if it's something serious? You can't just ignore it. Samuel bit his lip, torn between the urgency of the text and the vulnerability they had just begun to share. I'll respond later, he decided, putting the phone down, but the unease lingered. The three of them sat in silence, the air thick with unresolved emotions. Samuel felt as if they stood on the edge of a precipice, teetering between the desire to uncover buried truths and the fear of what those truths might reveal. "I'm sorry, guys," Samuel finally said, breaking the silence. "I didn't mean to derail our conversation. Let's get back to what matters. We're here for each other, and I want us to be honest." Lily nodded, her expression softening. "Thank you, Samuel. I appreciate that. I just want to be better, for myself and for you." Mark added, "And I want to be a better friend. I've realized that I can't keep avoiding the people I care about." For the first time that evening, Samuel felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the turning point they all needed. Maybe, just maybe, they could begin to heal the wounds of their past together. But as the words hung in the air, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that the message from the unknown number was a harbinger of something darker lurking beneath the surface. The truth, he sensed, was about to unravel in ways he could never have anticipated. Samuel Thompson sat at his kitchen table the next morning, the sunlight filtering through the window, casting a warm glow on the faded wood. The remnants of yesterday's solitude still lingered in his heart, but today, curiosity pulled him towards the will he had set aside. He felt an urgent need to dissect its contents, to understand the special gift he had devised for his sister and childhood friend. With a deep breath, he retrieved the envelope from the drawer where it had sat undisturbed. The paper felt crisp against his fingers as he unfolded it, the legal jargon blurring momentarily as he focused on what mattered most. The mention of a hidden sum of money made his heart race. It was intended to resolve Lily's mounting debt and provide Mark with a much-needed financial boost for his struggling business. Samuel's eyes widened as he reread the lines, each word echoing in his mind. This was a lifeline, a chance to amend the rift that had grown between them over the years. This could change everything, he whispered to himself, a mix of satisfaction and dread washing over him. The idea of helping them both brought warmth to his chest, yet he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Would this truly mend their estranged relationships? Would they welcome his help with open arms, or would they feel indebted, burdened by the very act meant to bring them closer? He imagined Lily's reaction. Would she be grateful, or would she resent the reminder of her struggles? The thought of her face, lined with the stress of financial worry, filled him with a sense of purpose. He wanted to see her smile again, to hear her laughter without the weight of past grievances hanging overhead. And what about Mark? Samuel had always considered him a brother, yet the chasm that had formed between them felt insurmountable. Would Mark see this as a gesture of friendship or a reminder of his failures? As these thoughts swirled in his mind, a sense of determination settled within him. He could not let fear hold him back. Today, he would reach out to them. The thought of being vulnerable, of laying bare his intentions and feelings, was daunting. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to face the music. That evening, Samuel picked up his phone, the weight of it heavy in his hand. He hesitated, glancing at the screen where he had saved Lily's and Mark's numbers. After a moment, he dialed Lily's number first, his heart pounding in his chest. The phone rang, and he felt the pulse of time stretching between each chime. "Hello." Lily's voice, tentative yet familiar, made his heart leap. "Lily, it's Samuel," he said, forcing a calmness he didn't quite feel. I need to talk to you." "Is everything okay?" she asked, the concern in her voice palpable. "It's about the will," he replied, the words tumbling out before he could second-guess himself. "Can you come over?" "Sure, I'll be there in a bit." After hanging up, Samuel felt a mix of relief and anxiety. He spent the next hour pacing the small living room, the ticking clock amplifying his nerves. When the doorbell finally rang, he jumped, heart racing. He opened the door to find Lily standing there, her expression a blend of curiosity and apprehension. "Hey," she said softly, stepping inside. "Hey," Samuel replied, motioning for her to sit. "I didn't want to keep this from you any longer." He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I found something in my will that I think may help you." Lily frowned slightly, processing his words. "What do you mean?" "It's a sum of money, enough to help with your debt. I wanted to make sure you had the support you need." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Samuel, you don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to, but I want to," he insisted, fighting back the lump forming in his throat. "You're my sister. I don't want to see you struggle." Lily looked away, her expression shifting. I appreciate that you want to help, but I can't just accept charity from you. It feels wrong. Lily, he said gently, it's not charity. It's family. I'm trying to mend things between us. I just wish I hadn't fallen into this mess in the first place, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I should have reached out more. I'm sorry, Samuel. He reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. We both made mistakes, but I think we can move forward together. Just then, the phone buzzed on the table, startling both of them. Samuel glanced at the screen, and his heart sank as he recognized the unknown number. He had meant to ignore it, but the urgency of the moment compelled him to answer. Excuse me for a moment, he said, lifting the phone to his ear. Hello? Samuel Thompson? The voice on the other end was low and gravelly, sending a shiver down his spine. Yes, who is this? I have information regarding your sister and Mark. Important information that you need to hear. Samuel's stomach twisted, the words hanging ominously in the air. What do you mean? Meet me at the old diner in an hour. I can't discuss it over the phone. It concerns a betrayal that could change everything you think you know. The line went dead before Samuel could respond. He stood frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear, the weight of the stranger's words sinking in. He felt a cold dread creeping into his bones, twisting his insides. What betrayal? What had Lily done? The conversation with his sister faded, replaced by a swirling storm of doubt and fear. Samuel. Lily's voice broke through his thoughts, concern evident on her face. Is everything all right? He lowered the phone, forcing himself to meet her gaze. I need to go meet someone. It's important. Who? She asked, her brow furrowing. I can't say right now. I'll be back soon, he replied, his voice tight. Lily's expression shifted from concern to confusion, and for a moment, he saw the flicker of hurt in her eyes, as if she felt he was pulling away. Please don't shut me out. I want to help too. I know, he said, guilt swelling within him. But this is something I have to do alone. With those words, he turned and walked toward the door, leaving behind the uneasy tension that had just begun to mend. As he stepped outside, the cool air hit his face, but it did little to calm the storm within. What awaited him at the diner? What secrets lay buried beneath the surface of their strained relationships? As he drove through the quiet streets of the town, memories flooded his mind, of laughter shared with Lily and Mark, of childhood adventures that felt like a lifetime ago. Now, those memories felt tainted by shadows of betrayal and unspoken truths. Arriving at the diner, he parked and stepped inside, the familiar smell of coffee and fried food wrapping around him. The place was nearly empty, save for a few scattered patrons and the waitress behind the counter, who looked up and offered a nod of recognition. Samuel's gaze scanned the room, searching for the mysterious voice that had called him here. Then he saw him, a figure in a booth at the far corner, cloaked in shadows. The man looked up as Samuel approached, his face obscured by the dim light. Samuel, the man said, his voice gravelly yet oddly familiar. Thank you for coming. What do you know? Samuel asked, his heart racing as he slid into the booth across from him. The man leaned forward, his expression serious. I know things about Lily and Mark that you need to hear. Samuel's breath hitched in his throat, a sense of foreboding settling over him like a heavy shroud. The evening had taken a turn he never anticipated, and now he was left to confront the ghosts of their past, unaware of how deeply they would reach into the fabric of his life and the lives of those he cared about most. The truth was about to unravel, and as he listened, he wondered if he truly wanted to know what lay beneath the surface of his sisters' and friends' lives. Samuel Thompson stood in his dimly lit living room, the air thick with tension and unspoken words. He had just received a shocking revelation about his sister Lily, and it left him grappling with a mixture of disbelief and heartache. His mind raced as he paced back and forth, the floorboards creaking beneath his weight, echoing the uncertainty that filled his heart. Lily, he called out, his voice strained, we need to talk. Now. Lily, who had been seated on the edge of the couch, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, looked up at him with wide eyes. About what? I don't think there's anything left to say, Samuel. Her tone was defensive, layered with the guilt that had been creeping into their conversations since he had brought up the will. Samuel stopped pacing and faced her, his expression a mix of hurt and determination. You know exactly what I mean. I can't believe you never told me about your financial struggles. I've been here, waiting for you to reach out, and instead, I find out through a letter from my attorney. What were you thinking? I was trying to protect you. She shot back, her voice rising. I didn't want you to worry about me. I thought I could handle it on my own. Handle it on your own? Samuel echoed, incredulity lacing his words. You've been drowning, and I didn't even know. We're family, Lily. We're supposed to support each other. Tears glistened in her eyes as she struggled to maintain her composure. I didn't want to burden you. You always seemed so content in your own world, and I didn't want to drag you down with my problems. I thought if I just figured it out, everything would be fine. Fine. Samuel scoffed, the bitterness rising within him. Is that what you call it? Ignoring me, shutting me out? You think that's fine? You've made choices that have hurt us both, and I deserve to know the truth. Lily's shoulders slumped, and she looked away, staring at the faded wallpaper as if the answers lay hidden within its patterns. I made mistakes, okay? I admit that. But I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could fix it all before it got too bad. As the silence stretched between them, Samuel's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Just as he was about to speak again, the sound of footsteps interrupted their confrontation. Mark, who had been lingering in the hallway, stepped into the room, his face a mask of concern. Is everything all right in here? He asked, his voice low and cautious. Mark, you shouldn't be here, Samuel snapped. This is between me and Lily. Mark hesitated, glancing at Lily, who quickly wiped a tear from her cheek. I just wanted to check in. I heard the raised voices. You should know, Samuel said, his frustration boiling over. Lily's been keeping secrets from me. Secrets that affect us both. Samuel, please, Lily pleaded, her voice breaking. This isn't the time. What do you mean? Mark interjected, his brow furrowing in confusion. What kind of secrets? Lily shook her head, her expression torn. You don't need to get involved, Mark. But Samuel couldn't contain his anger. Involved? He's already involved, Lily. He's been part of this twisted web alongside you. Just tell him the truth. Mark's eyes darted between them, and he took a step forward, trying to diffuse the tension. What's going on, Lily? What truth? With a heavy sigh, Lily looked down at her hands, the weight of her choices pressing down on her. I've made mistakes in my personal life, Mark, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been seeing someone. Someone you know. Samuel felt a chill creep up his spine. Who? He demanded, his heart racing. Who is it, Lily? Mark's expression shifted to one of alarm. Wait, what do you mean? I've been dating Mark, Lily confessed, her voice trembling. For the past few months. I didn't want to tell you because I was afraid of what you would think. The air in the room felt electric, as if a storm was brewing just beneath the surface. Samuel's mind raced, struggling to process the betrayal that hung heavily in the air. You were seeing Mark? He stammered, disbelief flooding his voice. I didn't plan for it to happen, Lily said, her voice rising. It just did. We were both lonely, and we found comfort in each other. I thought, you thought what? Samuel interrupted, his heart pounding. That I wouldn't care? That I wouldn't be hurt? You both have kept this from me while I've been trying to mend our family. How could you do this? Samuel, please, Mark interjected, his own face pale. It wasn't meant to hurt you. I never wanted to betray our friendship. Then why didn't you tell me? Samuel shouted, the anger coursing through him like wildfire. Why keep it a secret? I was afraid, Mark admitted, his voice low. Afraid of losing you as a friend. I didn't know how to tell you, and it spiraled out of control. Samuel felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted, leaving him unsteady and lost. The very foundation of their relationships felt broken, and he found himself grappling with feelings of betrayal and sadness. This is unbelievable, he breathed, his voice shaky. I can't believe you two would do this to me. Lily stepped forward, desperation etched on her face. Samuel, I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe me. I thought if I didn't say anything, it would be easier for all of us. Easier. Samuel echoed, feeling the bitterness rise in his throat. This is a nightmare. I thought we were trying to be honest with each other. I thought we were trying to fix things. Maybe we still can, Mark suggested tentatively, his voice softer now. We can talk about it, work through this together. Together. Samuel laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. How can we be together when everything feels like a lie? You both have betrayed me in ways I never imagined. I don't even know if I can trust either of you anymore. The weight of the moment pressed down on them, and Samuel felt the urge to flee from the suffocating atmosphere. I need a break, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this right now. Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked toward his old study, the familiar surroundings offering a refuge from the chaos of his emotions. As he entered the dimly lit room, he felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him. Dust particles danced in the rays of light filtering through the window, illuminating the remnants of a life filled with memories. Samuel walked to the bookshelf, his fingers grazing the spines of old novels and photo albums. He pulled out a worn album, its edges frayed, and settled into the chair that had cradled him through countless sleepless nights. Flipping through the pages, he was transported back to simpler times. Birthdays filled with laughter, family gatherings bursting with joy, and moments that reminded him of the love they once shared. He paused at a photo of himself, Lily and Mark, their faces beaming with youthful exuberance. They were inseparable back then, bound by friendship and loyalty. But now, the weight of betrayal felt like an anchor, pulling him deeper into despair. Why did everything have to change? He murmured to himself, his voice breaking. Why couldn't we just stay this way? The memories flooded back, and for a moment, he allowed himself to revel in the warmth of their shared past. But reality crashed down around him as he recalled the pain of the present. The thought of confronting Lily and Mark again felt overwhelming, and he closed the album, burying his face in his hands. As he sat in the silence of the room, Samuel realized that the love they had once shared was now tainted by secrets and lies. He needed to find a way to navigate through the wreckage of their relationships, but the path forward felt uncertain and fraught with heartache. In that moment, Samuel understood that the greatest challenge wasn't just facing the truth of their betrayals but also confronting the fragility of their bonds. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the difficult conversations that lay ahead, knowing that the journey to healing would be anything but easy. Samuel Thompson stood by the window, the fading light casting long shadows across the room. His heart raced as he prepared to welcome Lily and Mark once more, a mixture of hope and anxiety swirling within him. He had spent the last few hours contemplating how best to approach the conversation about his will, the hidden gifts, and the painful secrets that hung over their heads like a storm cloud. This time, he was determined to break the cycle of silence and misunderstanding that had plagued their relationships for years. When the doorbell rang, Samuel felt a surge of adrenaline. He opened the door to find Lily, her expression a mix of apprehension and curiosity, and Mark, who looked equally uncomfortable but was trying to mask it with a forced grin. "Hey Sam," Mark said, stepping inside and glancing around the familiar yet tense space. "Thanks for inviting us again." "Yeah, thanks," Lily echoed, her voice softer, almost hesitant. Samuel nodded, gesturing for them to take a seat at the dining table. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions, but Samuel knew they needed to confront everything head-on. As they settled into their chairs, Samuel took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "I wanted to talk about my will," he started, watching as their expressions shifted from curiosity to concern. "Specifically, the special gifts I mentioned." He could see the flicker of anxiety in their eyes, the weight of expectation heavy in the air. "What do you mean?" Lily asked, her brow furrowing. Mark leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table, the tension palpable. "Is this about the money?" he inquired, his voice a mix of eagerness and dread. "Yes, it is," Samuel replied, his heart pounding. "I've set aside a sum of money for each of you. For you, Lily, to help with your debts. And Mark, to assist with your business." He watched as their reactions unfolded, Lily's eyes widening in surprise while Mark's face darkened with an emotion Samuel couldn't quite place. Lily began, but Samuel raised a hand to interrupt her, needing to push through his thoughts before he lost his nerve. "I didn't do this to create more tension or obligation between us. I wanted to help. I thought it could be a way to mend our relationships," he continued, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "But there's more. I found out about something that changes everything." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, his expression shifting from surprise to concern. "What else is there?" Before Samuel could respond, his phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with another message from the unknown number. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he glanced at it, his instinct screaming that this was another piece of the puzzle he had yet to uncover. "Just a moment," he said, unable to suppress his curiosity. He opened the message, reading the words that felt like a dagger to his heart. Asterisk, you need to know the truth about your family. It's time to confront the past. Asterisk, his hands trembled as he processed the implications. It was as if the ground beneath him had shifted, and he was teetering on the edge of a cliff. What is it, Sam? Lily pressed, her voice urgent. What does it say? He looked up, meeting their anxious gazes, the weight of the world pressing down on him. It's about our father, he muttered, the words barely escaping his lips. There are secrets, secrets that could change how we see everything. Secrets. Mark echoed, his voice low, filled with disbelief. What kind of secrets? Samuel hesitated, the enormity of the moment crashing over him like a wave. I don't know all the details yet, but this person claims that our father wasn't who we thought he was. There are things he hid from all of us. Things that could explain a lot. What are you talking about? Lily looked bewildered, her hands gripping the edge of the table as if to anchor herself. Samuel, this sounds insane. I know it does, but I can't ignore it. It feels like everything we've built our lives around is based on lies. He paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. I thought I could bring us together with the gifts in my will, but maybe what we really need is to confront the truth. Together. Just then, the lights flickered ominously, a low rumble echoing in the distance as a storm approached. The atmosphere in the room shifted further, an electric tension filling the air as the power surged and then died, plunging them into darkness. Samuel? Lily's voice was a whisper, and Samuel could hear the panic rising in her tone. What's happening? I don't know, he replied, fumbling for his phone to use as a flashlight. The dim glow illuminated their worried faces, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He could see the fear in their eyes, the uncertainty of the moment pressing in on them. Do you think it's just a power outage? Mark asked, trying to keep his voice steady despite the tremor that betrayed his nerves. Or could it be something more? I don't know. Samuel exclaimed, his frustration boiling over. But this is just like our lives. Everything is so unpredictable, so chaotic. We've been living in the dark for too long, avoiding the issues that matter. Lily took a deep breath, her expression softening as she leaned forward. Samuel, if there's something we need to know, we have to face it. We can't let fear keep us from the truth. Whatever it is, we need to confront it together. Right, Mark added, his voice stronger now. We've been dancing around these issues for too long. If your father hid things from us, we deserve to know. We need to understand our past if we're going to move forward. As Samuel looked at their faces, illuminated in the flickering light, he felt a glimmer of hope. Despite the darkness enveloping them, they were united in their desire to uncover the truth. With a deep breath, he steadied himself. Okay, let's do this. I'll read the rest of the messages. If there's more to uncover, we'll face it together. Just as he was about to unlock his phone, the lights flickered back on, flooding the room with light. The sudden brightness felt jarring after the darkness, but it also brought a sense of clarity. Samuel looked at Lily and Mark, their expressions reflecting determination. Whatever happens next, we face it together, he said, his voice firm. No more secrets, no more running away. The three of them sat together, united in their resolve, ready to confront the shadows of their past. As Samuel prepared to dive deeper into the unknown, he knew that the true gift he had left behind was not just the financial support in his will, but the opportunity for healing, understanding, and a chance to forge a new path together. The journey ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long while, he felt that they were finally ready to face it.